Woo! Good morning, Steve Duraco. THE Rock. What is going on? Throwback Thursday, my San Antonio Scorpions baseball cap. Be kind, rewind. Anthony Del Toro. Foam Foot 420, good morning. Hector Gomez, good morning. Hector, was it you who tweeted at me once a Spur, always a Spur in regard to Boban last night? Now, Kawhi Leonard, he's no Spur. I'm just saying. Here we come on a Throwback Thursday. Sam Tobias, John Williams, good morning.
Chris Duel.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes, there are basketball gods. Oh, yes, there are basketball gods. And they smile upon us. And they rain down blessings upon us, just as Luka Doncic rained down 42 points, 8 rebounds, 14 assists, 6 3-point shots last night for Luka Doncic as the Dallas Mavericks smite all that is evil, all that is bad, all that is horrid and disgusting. But enough about Kawhi Leonard. They beat the LA Clippers 105-100. Shannon, Salty, Sweeney, ye of little faith, ye who did not believe in Luka and the Mavericks, even though they're your team. They're your basketball team. Nonetheless, I congratulate you. I congratulate the Dallas Mavericks for pushing the evil LA Clippers to the brink of elimination.
It's not that I don't believe in Luka, because I certainly believe in him. It's that I only believe in Luka. And he is the key to victory, as we very clearly saw last night, as he did quite literally everything.
My God.
So if he doesn't show up, which with his injury is, we don't know what we're always going to get. The Mavericks will win or lose based on Luka's performance, and last night he had one for the ages, again winning on the Clippers home court. However, the Mavericks did. This has been a weird series, right? All the games have been won by the visiting team. So I'm still not super confident going home to play in Dallas, but I'd certainly rather having this game 6 in which they can send the Clippers packing on our home court, hoping that they can turn it around, get it done, get some rest, because they might face the Lakers or the Suns. TBD, could be decided tonight, though.
Yeah, and we'll get into that. That Lakers-Suns, it's the second of a TNT doubleheader tonight. Both are elimination games. First game at 7 on TNT. Portland hosting the Denver Nuggets. Portland trails 3-2 in that series, so the Nuggets can close it out. So both home teams are on the brink tonight. Then you got the Lakers at Staples, scheduled for 9:30. That probably means a 9:45 tip because it's the second half of a doubleheader. Lakers host the Phoenix Suns. Lakers on the brink, trailing 3-2 in that series. You make a great point, Shannon, that the visiting team has won every game in that Mavericks-Clippers series, including last night's 105-100 Mavericks victory. But I gotta believe, in the scheme of the whole series, the Mavericks now playing their third home game, and all you have to do, Dallas Mavericks, is win once on your home floor. That's the way you've set it up for yourselves. You just have to win once on your home floor, and you're going to win that series against the Clippers. Granted, you're 0 for 2, and you've just got one more shot. You don't want to go to game 7. I mean, I know it's been a weird year with COVID, and home court advantage ain't what it used to be. And if the Clippers win against the Mavericks tomorrow night, this trend will hold and have held for 6 games in this series that no home team will have won. So maybe that gives you a little confidence in the Mavericks in a game 7, but you never, ever, ever want to play a game 7 on the road in the NBA. Statistically, you're almost certainly not going to win that game. So for the Mavericks, their opportunity is tomorrow night, and God love them. I hope they make my day and make my night. And I'm not proud of this, and my angst and my allegiance to the Mavericks in this series is all about one dude, and that is number 2, Kawhi Leonard, who screwed over the Spurs, screwed over his teammates, screwed over a coaching staff led by Greg Popovich, screwed over a city, screwed over a fan base. And I know I should be over it, and I aspire to be over it, but Shannon, I'm just not over it yet.
And that's okay, because I think he's beginning. There's probably some Clippers fans at this point who are feeling the same as you. They're feeling a little screwed over, right? Because they get Kawhi after he hits the shot while playing for Toronto and takes them to a championship. It only took 1 year. And that's the Kawhi they think that they're getting. And instead, they're getting Kawhi on the downslope of now what seems to be his career. It feels like he wasted a really great year by sitting out in San Antonio because now he's just making poor decisions. He's always been known as a two-way player. That just doesn't seem to be the case anymore. He and Paul George are not living up to the hype. He's shooting air balls with time left on the clock to tie the game, to get that home court win, to keep home court advantage. And he just can't do it. He is not that guy anymore. He is not the guy that LeBron is going to be passing the torch to. At this point, it looks like Luka, because Luka had, looks of a young LeBron last night as he carried the Mavericks on his back to get that win. Kawhi's just not doing it. He's not getting it done. We talk about him being a big free agent this year. Who wants him at this point?
For all the money you have to pay a king's ransom, and then you got to put up with him. He wants load management. He's late to practice. He's not a leader in that locker room. He doesn't talk much to the team. He doesn't inspire your players to play better. And to your point, you mentioned the air ball with seconds left in the game last night, with an opportunity to tie the game in the final seconds. Kawhi jacks up an air ball to which, and we got to post it. It's all over Twitter and the internet. Rajon Rondo just gets in his face saying, "What the hell were you thinking with that shot? From that angle, a low percentage shot. You put up an air ball. If you'd have just hit the rim, we maybe get a rebound and tie this game." So what I love about that too, we got dissension. You're going into a game 6 in Dallas where you trail 3-2 and you guys are screaming at each other. There is dissension. There is not cohesiveness in that locker room. So I would just love to see the Clippers fall apart in this game 6.
The Rajon Rondo thing was very reminiscent of LeBron, looking down court with his hands out to J.R. Smith.
Totally
right?
agree. Yes. Yes.
Make the pass, Kawhi. Make the pass. You had time to make that pass. It wasn't like it was a good look and he just somehow airballed. I mean, it was contorted. He had the defensive man all over him. There was no chance he was going to make that shot. And he jacked it up anyway because he wanted that moment again. I think he craves that moment. And that's why he does things like that. He should have made the pass. And that's coming from a guy like Rajon Rondo, who's a great distributor, but is also a bit of a ball hog.
Yeah.
So he knew in that moment Kawhi should have made that pass.
Well, and
he wasn't afraid to tell him.
It's funny you say that, Shannon, because you go back to 2013 and 2014 when the Spurs were I think arguably playing their best basketball ever. You look at all the great Spurs teams, and I'm partial to the 1999 Spurs team because that's the first team that won the championship. That was their first championship, and you always remember your first, and it's always special. But that 2014 team that came off the gut-wrenching Ray Allen 3-point loss in the finals to the Miami Heat, what it was about was passing, and they even put this on the championship ring after 2014. It was about the good to great pass. Make one more pass. Don't take a good shot. Make a good to great pass, because if you pass it just one more time to a wide open man, in that case a Spur, and Kawhi was on that team, and Kawhi was passing the ball, then great things can happen. And Kawhi's, as you said, in so many ways, he's not that guy that he was in 2014 with the Spurs. He's not that guy who won the championship with Toronto. He's a different, entitled, spoiled, not performing up to his, not last year in the bubble and not this year in the playoffs, is Kawhi Leonard living up to the hype and all the money and all the expectations the Clippers and the NBA has on him. And I'm telling you, I'm loving every minute of it.
It's almost like, is it unfair that we put all of this on him? But he did it
Nope.
to himself, right?
Yeah.
With forcing his way out of San Antonio and then performing the way he did in Toronto. I think it's all warranted. I think right now it's the kind of flack he deserves. And again, I don't know what that means for his future, because someone's going to have to pay him a lot.
Somebody will.
And somebody probably will.
Somebody will. I don't know if it's Steve Ballmer. If I'm Steve Ballmer, owner of the Clippers, I don't know if it's worth the headache. I truly don't. Couple of things, and we'll get back. I mean, I love that the Mavericks won. I could talk about it all morning, but we won't. Don't worry about it. But it was a big deal. What a day in the world of sports. Just earthquake, tectonic shifting of the basketball coaching and power structure plates. Two huge stories. The second one even bigger than the first that broke. One broke, and Shannon, they do this right when you and I go off the air, and I get a little ticked off at this. If you're going to break a big story at 9:06 a.m., can't you just do it at 8:45 so we can talk about it on the same day? So that looked like the big story of the day when we heard that Danny Ainge, the president of basketball operations of the Celtics, was stepping aside, and Brad Stevens would no longer be the head coach. He would move into the general manager position, and they'll now look for a head coach. I've seen some Becky Hammon rumors. We'll get into that. But as big as that was, that would have been oh my God, Danny Ainge out, Brad Stevens out as coach, but moving up. That would have been the big story. And then boom, bombshell a couple of hours later yesterday, and it certainly now is the big story of yesterday, and it carries over to today. Mike Krzyzewski, a.k.a. Coach K. Some say what he's done in college basketball over 40-plus years makes him the greatest coach in the history of college basketball. We can debate it. We'll talk about it. But we learned yesterday, Shannon, that Coach K will coach one more season and then step aside at the age of, and that's what blew me away, 74. I didn't know he was older than Pop. Pop is 72. I thought Coach K was like 68, a couple years younger than Pop maybe. But Coach K going to step aside after this final year at the age of 74. I
don't know college basketball without Coach K.
Yeah, good point. Few do.
In 1980.
Yeah.
I was born in 1993. And I can't say that I'm surprised by this announcement. I think for the past couple of years, we've been getting this will he, won't he. Roy Williams obviously stepped aside at the end of this year. That was strange just because of the year we had. You kind of thought, okay, let's do it one more time. I feel like Coach K would probably have done the same thing had it not been that strange year that was 2020, right? Because that would have been like 40 years, right? So it is I'm not surprised by it. It still is shocking. It still changes the landscape of college basketball as we know it. Obviously, he used to coach the men's national team at the Olympics, which,
True.
again, when he stepped down from that was kind of, I think, foreshadowing that he was taking a step back from the basketball coaching world, just one piece at a time. Now we have Coach Pop stepping in. But yeah, it's and then the poor guy who has to take over for that. Who is a former Duke player who has been a part of that coaching staff for the past couple of years. John Stryer, I believe is how you say his name. But very strange that they would go. It's almost like we know that he's just the middleman until they like. You have to have the fallback guy. You have to have the in between the breakup. You have to go back to someone who feels comfortable, but they know and that it's not going to last.
No,
it can never last.
Although, and I agree with you, I don't think it's going to last with this guy. But apparently, he's been there and a part of Duke recruiting lately, including Zion Williamson. But yeah, Coach, if you're Duke, you need a big name. And what's interesting about that, and I think the two stories kind of tie together. One of the rumors about why the Boston Celtics chose to elevate Brad Stevens to general manager is apparently he's been getting big offers from college programs. Yeah. And if Duke, exactly, yeah. But even Duke, if Duke knew the writing was on the wall that Coach K was going to leave, they need like a big time marquee coach. To your point about this, fill-in guy not going to last that long. Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if even a Duke would have rolled up the Brinks truck to Brad Stevens because he is a brand. People love him. Mm-hmm. He's young, dynamic. He could go like 40 years as the next Duke coach if it played out that way.
You and I are on the same page because I was thinking the exact same thing. And the interesting thing is, Coach K is staying one more year.
Yeah.
So they have time.
True.
Brad Stevens has time to say, you know what, this GM thing's just not for me.
It's a great point.
Like getting more involved on the court of action and because again, like you said, like he's young, he can make that 30-year, 40-year run. And I don't know how locked in they are to John here. If that contract's been signed and what that looks like as far as next year with him. Do you get a big head? Do you still do your small duties as an assistant coach? Do you still get Coach K water when he asks for it?
All good questions.
Waiting.
Yep.
This isn't like a Mac Brown thing where he ends up staying. Like you are. This is already in place. This has happened. Now we are just on the countdown clock here. But yeah, huge news yesterday.
We got so much to talk about. There were 4 NBA games last night. 3 of them closed out first-round series. As we mentioned, there's 2 big ones tonight. Astros win again last night. They beat Boston 2-1. So the Astros have won 4 in a row. We will get into that. Coach K, the changes at Boston. Some people mentioning Becky Hammon as a possible candidate for that Celtics head coaching job. As we go to break, I want to give a shout-out to Joel Cologne, one of our listeners, who sent me some Black Rifle coffee. I woke up this morning drinking, and I'm still drinking Black Rifle coffee. And Joel, you were right. Black Rifle coffee is pretty darn spectacular. I give it a big thumbs up and a big thank you, Joel. That was way too nice of you and above and beyond the call of duty and niceness. Coming up, we will introduce your soundscape stylist, Dave Ayler, who is wearing an appropriate Throwback Thursday t-shirt because it mentions 1967 on his t-shirt. She is Shannon Salty Sweeney. If you want to be a part of the show, you are always welcome. Phone lines are open to you until we have a guest, and that'll be at 8 o'clock. That'll be Tanner Carlson. So you got 90 minutes to jump in here if you want to place a phone call. And even after that, we'd probably still take your call till 9 because that's the way we roll. Phone number 800-707-9760. 800-707-9760. We are streaming live video as we always do on Ticket 760 and AM 1300 The Zone's Facebook pages. You can get it also via YouTube and Twitch. Lots coming your way. My God, there's so much going on in the world of sports, and we are all over it till 9 on the Chris Duel Show. Joel, thank you so much, sir. Yeah, the Black Rifle coffee, smooth, delicious, just right, man. I really like it a lot. I might become hooked. Okay, I got to send an email. Let's see, Hector Gomez. Thank you, Joel. Jared Taylor. Jared says Kawhi will prevail. Julio Reyes, one of the greatest runners. And Julio, I am so with you. Number 2. Kawhi Leonard is number 2 in more ways than one. Yeah, Joel, I don't live far from the new location of Black Rifle Coffee over, Bitters near 281, near the Easies. Jared, I still love him. I don't, Jared, but I mean, good for you if you do, because he's been very successful. So let's see, we got Jared, Joel, Hector Gomez, Ralph Balderas, Julio Reyes, Dave Emilio Castanuela, easy for me to mispronounce, David Valles, Foamfoot, Clint Proctor, Eric Winchester, John Williams, Sam Tobias, Anthony Del Toro, Steve Duraco. Welcome in, everybody. I did hear Stephen A. Smith. And was that the one? Because no, it was Tebow where he was citing white privilege. I heard Stephen A. Smith on a rant about Tebow, and he tied in. It wasn't Brad Stevens. He tied in somebody else. It was a white privilege rant. Oh, Steve Nash. He said Steve Nash and Tim Tebow getting those opportunities. Nash with Brooklyn and Tebow with the Jaguars. That an African-American player, or in the case of Steve Nash, a coach, would not have gotten those opportunities. That those were white privilege opportunities. I don't know about that. Especially in the case of Steve Nash, he had relationships with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, and I think whether he would have been black or white, he would have, if he had those relationships, he would have gotten that opportunity. Jerry Lauder, good morning. All right, I will be right back. Yeah, but on Instagram, and I think, did I put it somewhere else? I think it's only on Instagram so far. I might put it somewhere else. My first sip of Black Rifle coffee, I videoed it this morning for Instagram. It was very good. Beautiful. Okay. Thank you, sir. Good idea. Clint Proctor, if you're there, school's out for summer by request from you. Dave Ayler's going to play it. James Pellman says James Naismith. Don Haskins, there's a good one, David. Texas El Paso, or as they were known, Texas Western, when they... James Pellman says, happy to say I am now a Judson Rocket. Now, David says, Becky Hammond to the Celtics. No, she needs to stay here and be the coach. But Coach Pop needs to go to Boston with his political views. Wow. Wow, David. Well, so Pop shouldn't stay in San Antonio and be the coach of the Spurs because of his political views. Even though per capita, David, Bear County is a blue county. Not by much. There's quite a mix of Democrats and Republicans, but so I mean, by virtue of just vote counts and political registration, you could argue that Greg Popovich is in the right county. Yeah, I go Joel. I go John Wooden. I just, and again, I'm a little biased in that he was the coach of UCLA when I was growing up, so I paid close attention to him. And I've heard stories from Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and from Bill Walton and others. So Jerry Tarkanian, I mean, he had a great run at UNLV. It did not work out with the Spurs for Jerry Tarkanian. But yeah, for him to do what he did at UNLV, they were nowhere on the radar. And he turned them into a national power. I think there's been a 30 for 30 on UNLV. I think I've seen one. Here we come. By request, Clint Proctor, one of our listeners who joins us frequently, give you a little more of this. Alice Cooper, school's out for summer. A very clever, if you ever listen to the lyrics closely, there's some double meaning lyrics, just a clever, fun song. School's out for summer by Alice Cooper, as pretty much school is out for summer for most of the kids. And Shannon, that's always a great feeling. Remember that as a kid, like the last day of school and you're beginning the summer and you're looking at the clock And, like you get out at maybe 3 and it's like, man, it's 20 till 3. It's like 20 more minutes. I got to sit here. And then I am a free human being for the whole summer. That was a cool feeling.
It's the best. And those last few days of school, are like next to worthless. So those were fun too. Because
yes.
What are we playing today? What movie are we watching today? But now as an adult, do we still like summer? Because I do not.
Well, see, I
only liked it because it was just meant no school. But it's so hot. There's bugs everywhere. I have so many mosquito bites on me. The rain is certainly not helping. I mean, it's just drawing them in. But it's too hot. There's no sports. All the bad TV game shows are on that I don't have any interest in watching. I'm a fall person. I'm a fall and winter person.
See, I'm a summer. Get me by a swimming pool or the beach with an ice cold frosty adult beverage and some music or a book, and I'm good for hours. I'm just So, but no, what I don't. I see. This is where I thought you were going. Do we like summer? Now when the kids are out for summer. You and I don't have kids, and if you have kids, God love you, and it's a calling. And I realize, I'm just not built for it. So it's like I'd rather the kids be in school.
Like I love going to the movies, and movie theaters are opening back up, and like Cruella just came out. It's in theaters.
Yeah,
I'd love to go see it. There's this no coincidence that they released it the week kids got out of school, and usually we do this job and then I have a lot of free time in early afternoons when most people are still at work or kids are in school, so that is when I usually head to the movie theater, because I love a good movie theater all to myself. And during the summer I love kids movies just as much as kids love kids movies, but I can't do it. I want to watch the movie. I don't want to hear your kid talk about the movie.
Yes, exactly. Keep your kid quiet in the movie theater. Before we do the high five play of the day, we will introduce our poll question, but we have yet to introduce, and that's my fault because I'm just rude as a talk show host, our soundscape stylist, appropriately on a Throwback Thursday, wearing his St. Louis Blues since 1967 t-shirt. So I think that does qualify as a Throwback Thursday t-shirt. Super Dave Ayler, how are you, man?
I'm doing good. This is the closest thing I had to a throwback that I could, that wasn't a jersey.
I think it totally, since you got the since 1967 on it.
Yeah, so that's why when I saw it laying on the top of the dryer, I go, there it is.
Nice.
I'm wearing it.
Very nice.
And the best 3 reasons to be a teacher: June, July, and August.
That is true.
And I'm with you. I love summer.
Oh God, I love summer.
If it gets below 80 degrees, it's too cold.
Agree, because I can always go into air conditioning. I can always jump in a pool. I can always drink an ice cold beer on a hot summer's day, and I'm good. And I actually tend to drink a lot more because it's hot outside, so I need a few more.
Gotta stay hydrated.
So, now, does it? You mentioned the 3 greatest reasons to be a teacher are June, July, and August. Do teachers get a paycheck during those months? Does the paycheck still? I think it does, doesn't it?
Yeah. My brother-in-law's a teacher, and because I asked him the same thing, I go, "Do you get paid for like June, July, and August?" He goes, "Yeah, it's prorated over the whole year."
Right. So it's still their crappy salary. It's just their pay throughout the year.
The salary's ridiculous for what
my
they
mom,
do.
as a recently retired teacher of over 30 years, will tell you it's mostly just the month of July, because teachers go back much earlier, and then after school they have to have closeout meetings. They have to clean out their rooms, and then she'll also tell you like July 4th is the beginning of the end, because leading up to July 4th, it's all of the summer commercials. And then after that, it's the back to school shoes and clothes and the latest gadgets that your child needs.
Oh,
that's
God.
just hard to watch.
And I remember as a kid, when the back to school commercials would come on TV, like in August or July, I would get depressed. It's like, oh my God.
I was
the same way.
I go, here we go with this crap again.
Wow, I totally, until you brought that up, I forgot that.
Especially because I was never getting any of the cool stuff either. Like my parents always the school always had an option where you could buy the pack for your grade level, like the recommended supplies.
Yeah.
So I was always getting that pack that every kid had, and not the kid who had like the gel pens.
Not the cool Justin Timberlake pack.
Yeah, I didn't
Yeah.
get to go to Target and get the special folders and binders.
The 64 crayon box of crayons.
Oh,
it was
God,
With
really
yes.
the, with the little sharpener in the back.
Yeah.
That was nice.
Yeah, I never got any of that either.
Mm.
Well, I got like the 5-pack. Okay, you should have to go to school now. You got the 5 colors.
Yeah, we taught you how to make secondary colors with your primary colors. Do that.
Before we do the high five play of the day, Shannon, we do have a poll question, and it is inspired by the looming retirement of Coach Mike Krzyzewski of Duke.
Yes, sir. Asking who is the greatest men's college basketball coach ever? Coach K of Duke, Dean Smith of North Carolina, John Wooden of UCLA, or other. You go ahead and tell us. My vote here, Chris, was John Wooden, just because, I mean, the dude has an award named after him.
Yeah.
And he's got books written about his philosophies and coaching styles. And that's not to say one day we won't have a Coach K, something or other, now that he is almost out the door.
Yeah.
John Wooden, for me, is definitely where the vote goes.
I am with you on that. And Wooden, you know, I hear former UCLA players who played under John Wooden way back in the day, you know, just talk about his whole thing was life lessons. He had like this pyramid of success, philosophy. And you're right. He wrote books about it. And he seemed to be more interested in turning these guys who would come at 18 to UCLA as boys, to turn these boys into not only men, but really successful men in life, not just basketball, which I thought was real cool. Now, but we do realize one of the choices is other. There, I mean, you can go Jim Boeheim, Jim Calhoun, Roy Williams, Bobby Knight, Adolph Rupp. I mean, there's so many amazing men's college basketball coaches. So you are not limited to those 3 choices. So we're interested in knowing who you think. And I think, though, Shannon, while you and I choose John Wooden, I think a really good, because you look how he spans so many eras in his 46 seasons, Mike Krzyzewski, I think certainly an argument can be made that he is the greatest because of his success over those 4 decades. Yeah, I mean, now we're into the one and dones. Previously, pre-one and dones, it's like everybody at Duke graduated. I mean, he was amazing in different eras, doing it in different ways.
Yeah, and you throw in what he did with the national team. I mean,
yes.
When you think about you coach college guys and do that as your day job, and then once every 4 years, and I know they do summer programs and things like that, but that you go and lead them to medals in the Olympics. I mean, because there is a difference between coaching pro athletes and college kids.
Huge point. And you would think if you didn't know how successful Coach K would be with the pros, you'd probably think, no, this isn't going to work, because there's such a difference between pros and college. So that's a great point. All right. We do this segment every morning because somebody deserves a high five in the world of sports. And sometimes we venture outside the world of sports. You never know. It's called the high five play of the day. And high five, not just the name of the segment, but a very cool destination in the Austin area, 2 locations where all kinds of stuff is going on, from games to food to adult beverages. It's kid friendly. And Shannon, it's one of your hangouts. You know all about it.
Yes, and they have wonderful weekly specials today. My favorite day of the week, Thursday, half price Axe throwing $5 frozen margaritas and 3 for $5 sliders. A great night to go watch the Lakers hopefully lose, get knocked out of the playoffs by the Suns, and send Chris Paul on to the second round with his team. But who knows? But a great place to go hang out, watch those NBA finals and any other sporting event you fancy. They've got plenty of TVs there, so they are not short on games. All right, today's high five goes to an Atlanta Hawk, goes to a former Sooner. And by now you should know it goes to Trae Young, because he, as well as his team, the Atlanta Hawks, I guess you could say the Knicks bowed out, but in truth, Trae Young bowed to the Knicks as they made their exit from the playoffs last night. It was a pretty epic thing to do. I think he did it after hitting a long 3. Trae Young, of course, a big storyline, not only for his great play. I mean, it started off game one with that last second buzzer beater game winning shot. But then he goes and he gets spit on in MSG, and it's crazy. And he does not retaliate. He does not even press charges. He does not want to make the narrative about him. It's just about basketball, his play on the court. And he holds strong. He is so nice. He even allows the Knicks to win a game because he knows how badly that fan base and that organization needed it. I don't know if anyone watched last night's game, but you saw, not only the usuals that roam the sidelines there as far as celebrity faces, but you also got like Chris Rock. I saw was there last night amongst many others because they probably knew just as well as the rest of us it was going to be their swan song. And after last night's game, Trae Young said, "I know where we are. I know there's a bunch of shows around this city, and I know what they do when the show is over. They bow. They say goodbye. They say thank you." So fantastic move. I love it. I think he's slowly becoming a villain, but he's becoming a villain in all the right ways. Again, his play on the court is fantastic, and he's not doing anything harmful, right? I mean, it's all part of the fun of the game. I love it. I love it. I love it. I know Atlanta's not a huge focal point as far as the NBA playoffs, but he certainly is making a case for as to why people should jump on that bandwagon if their team is already out of the playoffs. So high five to you, Trae Young, as you are getting up from that epic bow of yours.
And a lot of people are saying this was kind of Trae Young's coming out party. You know, people who are hardcore NBA fans know about him, but with the Atlanta Hawks, the Hawks just don't really show up on anybody's radar, at least not yet. Although, they finished the season at 41-31, 10 games above 500, and they win this series 4-1 over the Knicks. A lot of people thought the Knicks would have performed a lot better in this series. But yeah, and it's kind of apropos, I think, Shannon, on so many levels that he would take a bow at Madison Square Garden, where we're just in the shadow of Broadway, where in the New York song says, "If I can make it there, I can make it anywhere." It was kind of they were booing him throughout this series, as you mentioned. It got horribly ugly when someone spat on him, but he was resilient. He is certainly a young star in this league. And, the Atlanta Hawks have always kind of been a hapless franchise in the NBA. Trae Young may turn them into something special. And, good for the Hawks. They move on now, and they are probably going to give the Philadelphia 76ers all they can handle. It's going to be, we just automatically assume. And, Joel Embiid, the Sixers won last night. Without Joel Embiid, they beat the Washington Wizards 129-112 to close out that series. And in the same way, because the Knicks just suck up more oxygen because they're the Knicks and they had a decent season, some people thought the Knicks were going to have, a better series than this. It seems to be a foregone conclusion that Philadelphia is going to win the series against Atlanta. I think Trae Young's going to have something to say about that.
Yeah. And I think the NBA is probably in a little bit of crisis mode right now with the Knicks leaving, right? That's a huge fan base and market, New York. Both LA teams on the brink of elimination. There's no Miami, there's no Chicago. It's these smaller markets, but I think in the long run for the NBA, it's a good thing to have these superstar players that draw interest from other fan bases to come and watch. And to even grow their current fan bases into being more loyal fans who regularly tune in to see their guy play. And hopefully guys like Trae Young stick around in Atlanta, and guys like Zion Williamson stick around in New Orleans so that they can continue to grow the league, but grow their organization in those cities.
And you make an excellent point. New York, the biggest market, gone last night. Tonight, the Lakers could be gone, and the next night, the Clippers could be gone. So the New York and LA markets could be knocked out of the NBA playoffs. NBA execs and television executives won't love that. Lots coming up in the 7 o'clock hour. She is Shannon Salty Sweeney. Dave Ayler making the show go. We're with you till 9 on the Chris Duel Show. Luisa Alanis, good morning. Kevin Monk, good morning.
Yeah, we're just gonna do that today. And then no music for the shakedown because we're gonna play that, and then I have like a novel I wrote to get all my thoughts in, so I'm just gonna read that. Yeah, no, we're going really dramatic here. Thank you.
Jesse Hernandez, good morning. Yeah, Jesse, I disagree with you about Pop. I think Pop has the right, as you do, as I do. If he feels passionately about something, he has the right to speak out about it. But I understand your position, and a lot of people agree with you. Jorge says Pop should also retire. A lot of Pop detractors out there. Watch what you ask for. You just automatically assume another coach is going to come in and have somewhere near as successful a run as Greg Popovich. I don't know. Thank you, Louisa. I am with you. Pop has earned the Lifetime Achievement Award. Pop can stay as long as he wants, as far as I'm concerned. And I believe he is still coaching at a very high level. So I see the question here. So if Pop retires and Becky takes over, are the expectations going to be too high for her as his replacement? I don't think so. And I think they're building a very good foundation of young, talented players. So I think she would do well. I think it's unrealistic for her to do what Pop did in his 20 plus years, to assume that we're going to go to the finals 6 times and win it 5 times. Although that would be cool, wouldn't it? But, and again, there's some of these, and we'll get into it. There's some rumors that she would at least be considered for this Boston job. But I just think she's perfectly suited if she replaced Pop whenever Pop walks away. The players that are on the roster here will have had a history with her. So one of the things, like if she went to Boston, you've got an entire roster of players who've not played for a woman as a coach before. So there's that hurdle. There's an entire fan base not used to the idea of Becky Hammon as their coach. Whereas if she became the coach in San Antonio, we've pretty much been talking about this for the last 3 years or more, that it could be a possibility. So, and I sense that's the master plan in San Antonio. I think she knows it. I imagine, but I don't know, that she's had conversations with Pop about timetable, when that might be. Good morning, Beth Settle. How are you this morning? You're in here earlier than usual. Yeah, John, I'm with you. But in this case, I am definitely a Mavs fan. If they can knock out. Here we come. Now, Chris Duel. What a 24 hours it has been in the world of sports. We are all over it. Coach K, Mike Krzyzewski of Duke, announcing his retirement. Now he will coach this coming season, but that'll be it. Get ready for the John Shire era at Duke. Good luck with that. The Brad Stevens era is over with the Boston Celtics. Might it become the Becky Hammon era? That's something we will talk about. And as the Brad Stevens era comes to an end at head coach, Brad Stevens moves up in the organizational depth chart. He will become the general manager as Danny Ainge steps aside. Danny Ainge was the general manager who had all these draft picks, who orchestrated a lot of these moves that have put the Celtics in a position to be successful, although it wasn't a very successful season this year for the Boston Celtics. Danny Ainge, at the age of 62, has cited some health concerns. Last night, we've talked about it, 4 games in the NBA. 3 of them resulted in eliminations. Philadelphia eliminated Washington. The Knicks eliminated Atlanta. Utah eliminated Memphis. And the late game, the last game of the night, the Dallas Mavericks, an upset as far as most people were concerned. They beat the LA Clippers in LA 105-100. Mavericks take a 3-2 lead in that series. Mavericks went on a 16-0 run to end the third quarter. Luka Doncic just on fire. 42 points, 8 rebounds, 14 assists. He had 6 3-point shots. And Shannon and I talked about Kawhi jacking up an air ball in the final seconds that could have tied the game, to which Rajon Rondo, his teammate, got into his face. And Shannon, you had the perfect analogy. It was that very similar to the reaction we saw from LeBron James a number of seasons ago back with the Cleveland Cavaliers. Who was it? J.R. Smith? Who was it that jacked?
I believe it was.
Yeah. And but it was very, very similar. Only, in the case of LeBron is your superstar reacting to a lesser player, and Kawhi is supposedly the superstar on the Clippers, and Rondo is more of a role player. But
he's a vet with a couple of rings himself.
Yes.
So I don't know that I would consider them on 2 different platforms.
Okay, that's a good point. I just think that speaks of major dissension on the part of this Clipper team at this moment. It looks like maybe they're falling apart. Those 2 teams will go at it tomorrow night. Mavericks with a chance to close out the Clippers, and I'm hoping that happens.
Me as well, sir. And I think that moment that you mentioned, the air ball, the look from Rondo, will be a turning point for them should the Mavs oust them tomorrow night. That'll be what they look back to and say, you could have had it. You could have had that game. You could have had that series. And now you're watching from home.
And so many people believe that if indeed the Mavericks beat the Clippers tomorrow night, that 2 consecutive really lackluster early exits from the playoffs for the Clippers last year in the bubble in Orlando and this year, it could happen tomorrow night, then my goodness. And another thing that you jumped into, Shannon, I just want to underscore it. The NBA, each of these next 2 nights, Lakers could be eliminated tonight, and there are a lot of people believe that they will. Phoenix leads 3-2 in that series. They play tonight at Staples Center, and then tomorrow night it's at Dallas. Clippers at Dallas. If on consecutive nights both the Lakers and the Clippers get eliminated, my God, the NBA and the networks and advertisers have got to be gripping over this, that what that might mean for television ratings down the stretch in these NBA playoffs.
Yeah, and if anything, at this point, they're probably just hoping that should they both leave in the first round, that they at least take it to 7 in each one, because everyone loves a game 7.
True.
Whether it's the finals or the first round of the playoffs, they need that game 7, especially if both LA teams are gone. And we mentioned the Knicks are gone, and I know people are like, what about Brooklyn? Well, Brooklyn is great. They are in New York. Yes. They do have the big 3. Yes. But they do not draw the numbers. The biggest game so far this year was the play-in game between LA and Steph Curry, aka the Golden State Warriors. And that was a play-in game.
Yeah.
It just goes to show you the power of a team in the market. It's more about the market as a whole rather than the people on the team.
Well, and it's interesting you bring that up. You know, and I've said this all along, that big 3 at Brooklyn, on a certain level, they're all kind of unlikable. And I know Kevin Durant's a Longhorn, and I know he gets a lot of love in these parts. And I know, and as you've documented, he gives a lot back to the University of Texas financially, which is cool for a one and done. I respect that a lot. But, you know, when he made the leap from Oklahoma City to the Golden State Warriors, a lot of people thought he was a gravy trainer and a ring chaser, and he was kind of a whiner and a diva at Golden State. Of course, famously, you know, Twitter burner accounts and going after people on Twitter. Then you got James Harden, kind of a ball hog, not a very likable guy as a player on or off the court. He's been in altercations at strip clubs over the years. And then you got Kyrie Irving, who's kind of a head case, a different breed of cat. Not that there's anything wrong with being a different breed of cat, but a guy who says the earth is flat. I just, you know, I think of a team like the Golden State Warriors. A lot of people love Steph Curry. It's hard not to like Klay Thompson. I don't like Draymond Green, but a lot of people love Steve Kerr. So there was a lot of love for the Warriors when they kind of had their dynastic run in the NBA. And for the Lakers, they're the Lakers. It's a big brand. Love them or hate them. Kind of like the Dallas Cowboys being America's team. You either love them or hate them. And same thing with LeBron James. Some people love him, maybe more hate him. But I think more LeBron James is much more must-see TV than those 3 guys at Brooklyn. So it is going to be interesting, no matter what happens to these LA teams each of the next 2 nights, to take a look at how ratings play out whenever the Brooklyn Nets play. Will America get behind and tune in to that road show, what might be a train wreck? We'll see how it plays out for the Brooklyn Nets, but it will be interesting to see if they do generate TV ratings.
Yeah, you mentioned the love or hate people have for the Cowboys and the Lakers. I think that's what you need. Rather where the Nets are kind of just in betweeners, where it's like you can like him, but you can also find things you don't like him. I don't know if that really interests me. And the narrative that they've been, you know, the team predicted to win it all from the beginning. You know, no one likes that story. We like the upset.
Yes.
We like the close calls.
Yes.
To see that play out, I don't think you'll get the views until you get a game 6 or 7 in there.
And one of the biggest experts on the NBA, a guy that we talked to, and we had him on the show yesterday, Bill Schoening, the voice of the San Antonio Spurs, he said it yesterday. He said it the week before. He is very high on the Utah Jazz. The Jazz had the best record in the NBA, so obviously the best record in the Western Conference. They close out the Memphis Grizzlies last night, 126 to 110. They're led by Donovan Mitchell, but they've got Rudy Gobert. They've got some other players that are really, really good. But I mean, if they go to the finals, I mean, even if it's Utah versus Brooklyn in the finals, is that going to inspire people? I mean, any combination. I think coming out of the East, we expect it to either be Brooklyn, Philadelphia, or Giannis and the Milwaukee Bucks. And I know Trae Young might have something to say about that. But any one of those combinations, if you add Utah, if it's Utah versus any of those teams, it's like, really? It's like, yeah, I'll watch because I'm a fan, but will the rest of America watch? Whereas Phoenix, with Chris Paul, with DeAndre Ayton, that Phoenix brand, Phoenix, at least, back in the day when they did have Steve Nash, Shaq was there for a while. They were knocking on the door in the playoffs for a while. Phoenix seems to bring a little more sizzle if they get to the finals as opposed to the Utah Jazz for me.
Yeah, I love Salt Lake. I love going to Deer Valley, which is very near to my heart. I love skiing there, but it's not a basketball town, and it's not a destination spot for people unless they are doing something like skiing or going to the mountains in the summertime. You're painting a great picture of the difference between the NBA and the NFL. We will watch the Super Bowl no matter who is playing.
It's a great point.
Miraculously, somehow the Browns and the Tom Brady-less Bucks got into the Super Bowl, we would all turn on the TV and watch every second through, from beginning, pregame, commercials, the Puppy Bowl, all of it. The NBA Finals, we don't care until Game 7, 2 minutes left, because it's basketball, and the last 2 minutes seem to always decide the better games anyway. That end up being 15 minutes long instead. I mean, the NBA has a problem, and I don't know the answer to fixing it. I don't know if that's maybe adding a team back to Seattle and adding a couple more teams into the mix just to share the love and see if you can build up other markets. Because as I said, you can have a big name player, but that doesn't necessarily link it to turning a market into this must see television for everyone there. You have to do so much more, and they are struggling, and they're really going to struggle. Should what I think I'm hoping will happen, which is an early exit for both the Clippers and the Lakers.
Yep, and it could happen in each of the next 2 nights. Well, and it's funny as I'm hearing us have this discussion, Shannon, about, Utah, and that's a market, and I don't know if America's going to watch. Here we are having this discussion as I sit in San Antonio, and that was one of the narratives. All the times the Spurs went to the NBA Finals, a lot of people say, boring. Yeah, please, they're boring.
In defense of that, you have Coach Pop, who is a guy that people tune in and they love to see what he's doing on the sidelines. And then for my team in Dallas, they love to see what Mark Cuban is up to. And is he going to come talk to a referee at some point? They have these storylines. What's a storyline out of the Jazz?
Nothing.
Other than their fans were mean to John Morant's fans.
Yeah. I mean, you really do. I mean, and even their main player is Donovan Mitchell. You mentioned the Mavs back in the day. Dirk Nowitzki. It's like, whoa, okay, that guy's interesting. I want to tune in and see how he's going to do. Where Spurs had Duncan and Manu and Tony, and before that David. Player. Yeah, right. So yeah, there's nobody on that Jazz team that you go, whoa, I really want to tune in for this.
Buy me that jersey.
Or Coach Quinn Snyder. Yeah. But, and again, as we say all that, as a fan, if Utah playing fundamental basketball continues to win, I mean, my God, you've got to respect them. You got to say, hey, it's like, if they just keep winning, it's like, sorry, we're just going to keep winning. We're going to show up. So
yeah, and I don't think anyone is out here saying they don't deserve to be where they are, or the refs they're the ones that are getting them to win games. I don't think anyone's saying that, but in a league where everything is, the fancy passes and the 3-point shooting, and then you have this team that's up the middle, put it in the basket from the block and get your high percentage shots and just go about your day and play solid defense. That doesn't excite people anymore.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Jazz, and they won last night. They closed out the Grizzlies 126-110. So obviously Donovan Mitchell is their main guy. He had 30 points last night. You've got Mike Conley on that roster, who's very, very good.
Mhm.
Bojan Bogdanovic had 17. Rudy Gobert had 23 and 15. I mean, he's a force. I mean, these are
Well-rounded.
Yeah, these are very, very good players. Jordan Clarkson comes off the bench. Used to be a Laker. He went to high school in San Antonio. That's just a little local flavor for San Antonio people, but yet none of those guys. And Donovan Mitchell's a great player. Don't get me wrong. I mean, he's as great as Trae Young is as a great young player. That's where Donovan Mitchell is. But you mentioned and you brought up Trae Young taking a bow at Madison Square Garden last night. To me, that. And it appeared on your radar. You made it the high five play of the day. It was a moment of bravado. It was a moment of style and pizzazz that I think puts Trae Young further on the NBA and the national radar, which Donovan Mitchell, we go, yeah, that's a good player, but what about Donovan Mitchell? What's other than, yep, he can hoop it, but is he must-see TV? I think Trae Young is much closer to becoming must-see TV than Donovan Mitchell.
Well, for one, Trae got to do it in New York. And that wasn't a choice that he got to make. Those were just the cards that team was dealt. And
yes,
you're certainly not going to get that level of excitement when you're playing the Memphis Grizzlies. If they get a chance to play an LA team, should they make it through, then we may get a little bit more excitement out of it. But you just ran through the stats for that team last night. That is a well-rounded. It doesn't take just one guy, whereas in LA, we're seeing LeBron can't do it all. He needs AD, and still, that's two guys, PG and Kawhi. They can't even get it done when they are both on the floor. I mean, Rondo, whatever side player, again, it's not the full team. Mavericks, they ride or die with Luka. So you're looking at the most well-rounded team. So yeah, you don't have that splashy guy because they share the ball, they share the love, and they all get some. And it's working for them.
Yeah.
And they could care less if people think they are the hot commodity, if they are future superstars, if they should be all-stars in years to come, if they should be a big free agency target for one of these bigger markets. They are focused on right now, and they have a pretty good chance of getting to the finals this year with the way things are playing out.
And before I dive into just a quick discussion on Becky Hammon and maybe the Boston Celtics job, I do like that you cited that. If Utah could find a way to win the NBA title this year, and they have the best record in the NBA in the regular season, and to do it without being a free agent destination and to build it from the ground up. I mean, obviously that's what the Spurs are trying to do right now. That's what the Mavericks are trying to do right now. It would be. So as you say that, and Bill Schoening yesterday told us he's rooting for the Utah Jazz. That is a reason to root for the Utah Jazz. They're doing it the old-fashioned way. They're doing it with teamwork and not superstars. So that's wow. Now I may have to tune into the Utah Jazz more than I thought. I do want to just get your thoughts on this, Shannon, before we move into, and oh, by the way, fasten your seatbelts for the salty shakedown here in less than 15 minutes. Someone dissed the program of the University of Texas Longhorns, and I think Shannon's got some issues. So
I've typed up a manifesto.
So yeah, so if you're in your car, fasten the seatbelts, both hands on the wheel, and take a deep breath, and don't sip coffee during the salty shakedown. But it's inevitable, and there were even last year, but I think with each passing year, as she further establishes herself as the lead assistant now of Coach Greg Popovich, there were people immediately yesterday when we heard that Brad Stevens is stepping aside as the head coach of the Boston Celtics. He'll move into the front office as Danny Ainge goes away. Immediately, I started seeing relatively legitimate NBA sites saying Becky Hammon will be a candidate for the Boston Celtics job. They will interview her, and we will find out if the Boston Celtics want her and if she wants to be the head coach of the Boston Celtics. How seriously do you take these? Shannon, is it just talk, or might there be some there?
I think she gets interviewed.
I do too.
I think that's how far it goes. And I think she says, thank you, but no thank you. I will put this on my resume that I was interviewed for this job, but no thank you. This is not where I wish to start my head coaching career. That team is a hodgepodge. It is a mess of an organization when you think of the relationship between them and their fans. Kyrie mentioned it. That he had some struggles with fans when he was there. Those fans have obviously were misbehaving quite a bit throughout their run against the Nets this postseason. That does not, to me, as a female, I do not want to put myself into that situation. That doesn't mean she needs to go somewhere where she's going to be coddled and people are going to be lovey-dovey, whatever. But if you're going to make a splash and you want to win and you want to do it the right way and you want to have a sustaining career, I do not believe that is the right place. That's not to say the Spurs is the only organization that she could succeed at. I think it's probably the easiest road.
Yeah, the easiest transition.
As being with guys who have seen what she can do and have belief in her already, than having to come into a new organization and kind of prove herself all over again. Because to a lot of people, she's probably just a name, maybe even just a token name. So I don't like her as the head coach of the Boston Celtics. I think she gets an interview. I think that's great. I think that's a step in the right direction. I do not think she gets this job, or she should take the job if she's offered it.
Yeah, I've said all along, San Antonio, and I agree with you, it doesn't have to be San Antonio, but I just think it would be more seamless for her. We've already, as Spurs fans, for like 3 years, started to get used to the idea of, hey, the heir apparent to Coach Pop might be Becky Hammon. So we're, as a fan base, we're already kind of used to it. And as you say, she would already have a roster of players who are used to her being an assistant coach, or arguably, and I know the Spurs haven't officially said this is her designation as the lead assistant to Coach Greg Popovich. I know, Will Hardy and other coaches, depending on who they scout, have been, the coach if Pop gets a double T or misses a game, as he did when he went to the Naismith Memorial Hall of Fame induction for Tim Duncan. But I agree with you. I think she's going to get an interview. I don't think it's in her best interest to take that job. And I think her best interest is to just stay put. Pop is 72 years old. One of these days, maybe this year, maybe in a year, maybe in 3.
Coach K.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Coach K did it at 74. Pop is 72. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens there. Lots more coming up. All right. I warned you, Shannon's got issues. The salty shakedown is always salty. This may be the saltiest shakedown ever. Fasten your seatbelts. Do not drink coffee during this. There could be spit takes. You could get coffee all over your steering wheel. We don't want to be responsible for that. Coming up, the Salty Shakedown, this day in sports history, sports birthdays, and more. Just after 8 o'clock, Tanner Carlson going to come in here. Hopefully he won't be berating Tim Tebow once again. I'm sure he'll be happy about the Mavericks victory because, like Shannon, he's a Dallas Mavericks fan. Dave Ayler is your soundscape stylist. We are with you till 9. You're welcome in on the phone lines at 800-707-9760 on the Chris Duel Show. Yeah, Eric, I disagree with you. Spurs can't win under Pop. Spurs were 6 games above 500 until COVID got them this year, and they had the worst second half schedule, both from an opponent win percentage perspective to a backloaded zero rest perspective. I think Pop is every bit as good of a coach today as he was in 2014 when they won their last championship. Michelle Johnson from Marysville, Kansas says, Becky will not leave San Antonio. They have been grooming her to take the reins at some point. She is loyal to the Spurs, in my opinion. I think there's a good chance you're right. All right. I am going to get some more ice. I'll be right back. See, Eric, I like the talent more than you do. I think this talent is very good. They got a lot of cap room. They might have a ton of cap room if DeMar DeRozan leaves. I think a piece here or there, and this young unit evolving in the Spurs system, I think for a moment there, they were very good this year when they were 6 games over 500. Manuel Gonzalez, good morning. Yeah, I would agree with that. Manuel says we need a Bruce Bowen type, a player who can play excellent defense and drain some threes. Well, and while he's not known for his defense, I don't know if you've noticed Bryn Forbes, who the Spurs let get away, and he wasn't playing that great for the Spurs. He's now like shooting 44% from 3-point range for the Bucks. Bryn Forbes has become a 3-point shooting machine. But yeah, in the last 2 drafts, Keldon Johnson looks outstanding 2 drafts ago. Devin Vassell from last year looks like he's got big upside. Had Derek White not been injured, Derek White was scoring like 21 points and 10 rebounds before his injury. That's what really right. And Derek White got injured like the final month of the season, maybe the final 3 weeks. They were a really good team with Derek White. That injury really hurt them. So I think everybody's going to be a year more into the system. They're going to have about another number 11 draft pick this year. Granted, that won't help in a big way this year. Trust the player personnel department. They get somebody decent in free agency. I know there's no big prize out there unless you bring Kawhi back. DeMar DeRozan was playing a lot better this year. He might be worth throwing some money at. Here we come. That'll get you going in the morning. Almost like the Black Rifle coffee that I was drinking this morning. It's my first morning of drinking Black Rifle coffee. It was good. Shout out to Joel Cologne, who listens to the show. Joel was nice enough to send some Black Rifle coffee my way. Nice way to start the day. Chris Duel Show, along with Shannon Salty Sweeney, Dave Ayler, wearing his Throwback Thursday St. Louis Blues since 1967 t-shirt. I am wearing my Be Kind Rewind Blockbuster Video t-shirt on a Throwback Thursday. And in a moment, warn your children to stay away from the radio because God knows what she's going to say. It won't be that bad, but she's ready. The salty shit. Someone took some serious shots in the national media.
Written a manifesto
at the University of Texas. So the manifesto is coming and it's moments away. Shannon Salty Sweeney, and I'm the guy you're and I don't know what you're going to say. I'm assuming you're going to take this guy down. This guy deserves a little taken down. I'm just
down a peg.
Yeah, because I'm a little sick of it. SEC. Shut up. A little sick of the SEC, but that's just me. It's not my shakedown. It's the Salty shakedown. It's coming right up. Before that, sports birthdays, and on a Throwback Thursday, what better day or way to do this day in sports history? Let's go throwback. This day in 1988, the baseball poem Casey at the Bat was first published by the San Francisco Examiner. A classic poem, Casey at the Bat. Google it if you don't know about it. On this day in 1932, Major League Baseball's Lou Gehrig is the first to hit 4 consecutive home runs. 4 straight at-bats he hits home runs as the Yankees beat the A's 20-13 in a football score. This day in 1955, if Dave Ayler were alive, he would have been excited. Stan Musial of the St. Louis Cardinals hits his 300th home run. But Dave Ayler wasn't born yet, so he couldn't share in the joy. On this day in 1989, the Houston Astros beat the LA Dodgers 5-4 in 22 innings. That game was 7 hours, 14 minutes, and 9 seconds. And they cut off beer sales probably at the end of the 7th inning. On this day in 1989, Nolan Ryan of the Texas Rangers pitches his second one-hitter of the season. Thank you, Nolan Ryan. That was his 11th one-hitter ever at that time. On this day in 2012, Tiger Woods claims his 73rd PGA Tour victory with a 2-stroke victory at the Memorial Tournament in Muirfield Village. He equaled Jack Nicklaus's record of 73 PGA Tour victories. And finally, on this day in 2018, Golden State Warriors guard Steph Curry breaks Ray Allen's NBA Finals record for most three-pointers in a game with 9 as the Warriors win Game 2 over the Cleveland Cavaliers, 122-103. I don't love Steph Curry, but if you broke Ray Allen's record, okay, I'm with you on that one. I don't like Ray Allen. 2013, not that I can't get over it. That's this day in sports history. How about some sports birthdays? Born on this day in 1943, American Basketball Hall of Fame forward and later coach Billy Cunningham. He was an NBA champion player and later coach of the Philadelphia 76ers. Billy Cunningham, born in Brooklyn, New York on this day in 1943. Born on this day in 1945, golfer Hale Irwin won the U.S. Open in 1974, 79, and 1990. He won the U.S. Senior Open in 98 and 2000. Hale Irwin was born in Joplin, Missouri. Born on this day in 1959, NFL linebacker Sam Mills played with the New Orleans Saints and the Carolina Panthers. Sam passed away in 2005. Born on this day in 1986, Rafael Nadal, Spanish tennis player, 20 Grand Slam singles titles, 13-time French Open champion. He was born in Manacor, Balearic Islands, Spain. And finally, born on the same day as Rafael Nadal in 1986, Al Horford, basketball player, now with the Lakers, Al Horford. Happy birthday, Al Horford. So those are your sports birthdays. That's your sports history. And now, ladies and gentlemen, disclaimer on this one. If you're driving in a car, fasten the seatbelts. Do not consume any beverage of any kind during this. And parental guidance is suggested. Here it is, your salty shakedown.
It's going to be a little different today, Chris.
Okay.
We usually do 3 stories that maybe have gone under your radar that we discuss on this show at this time. Today, we're going to talk about a man who decided to come after the University of Texas yesterday. 3 months prior to football season. The dead zone of college football season, if you will. When you can only really talk about the top stories that are going on. So we're going to play you the clip first before I read my manifesto of Paul Feinbaum on ESPN's Get Up yesterday morning.
So, Paul, let's talk about the expectations. We all understand they are Texas size. Are they realistic?
They are not. Texas is no big deal other than to Texas fans. This is not a relevant program anymore, Greeny. And go back to 2013 when Texas people fired Matt Brown. He didn't resign. He was shown the door. The same Matt Brown who now has North Carolina in the top 10. Texas can't even win its own state anymore. It lost 2 of its best players to Alabama. It's pathetically behind Jimbo Fisher at Texas A&M. It's way, way behind the biggest rival up in Norman, Oklahoma. Texas is fighting for 3rd at best in its own league, and I don't really see a clear path. I think Sark is a very good coach, but let's be honest, Hembo could have coached that offense last year at Alabama.
Oh, my goodness. So let me ask you, Paul, is he the right guy to do it? They're waiting for someone to finally get them back where they want to be. Is Sark the right guy to do it?
I think he's as good as anyone else, but the problem isn't Sark. The problem are Texas people. Nick Saban told me one time when he was considering, after he turned down Texas, he didn't want to report to 15 or 20 billionaires every day. That's the way that program rolls. Saban took over at Alabama and said, I'm in charge here. Lincoln Riley has very few people that he has to answer to in Norman. That's the problem for Sark. Every other minute, somebody else is calling up and wanting a piece of him and that program. And until they clear that up, and they haven't yet, that program will be stuck in the mud.
Oh!
Congrats, Paul Feinbaum of the Paul Feinbaum Show. Congrats, college football commentator for ESPN. Congrats, University of Tennessee graduate with a degree in political science. Congrats, mouthpiece of the SEC and unofficial BFF of Jimbo Fisher. You have my attention for now. The irony here is you are arguing that a program has lost its relevance, a program whose name you can't seem to keep out of your mouth, a program you went on a national TV to talk about during what is considered the dead season of college football. You've been in the game a minute and you know, or at least you should know what is actually relevant, popular, captivating, for the lack of a better term, clickbait. So you used your time on national television to talk Texas, one of college football's most winningest programs of all time, college football's biggest brand as far as dollar signs are concerned, and college football's most intriguing team year in and year out, regardless of win-loss record from the year before. Now, let me be clear. As a Texas alum and born and raised fan, I will always have my school's back. And as a member of the media and a naturally pessimistic person, I will always speak the truth and give my honest opinion. I have no problem saying Texas will take an L or has taken an L. I've done so many times, so I understand that I am not coming about this just as a fan, but as someone who sees all sides. So let's keep it real. Google Paul Feinbaum. He's best known for his SEC coverage, as Chris mentioned earlier. Google Paul Feinbaum, Jimbo Fisher. He's praised him since the beginning of time and continues to do so, often proclaiming Texas A&M as the best in Texas, recently saying Jimbo is smarter than all of us. This after Jimbo Fisher said his comments about Texas A&M defeating and kicking Nick Saban and Alabama's ass. The unofficial BFF of Jimbo Fisher, Mr. Paul Feinbaum. Google Paul Feinbaum in Texas. You'll find that he has only ever had negative things to say. In 2018, in fact, he said Jimbo was currently beating Texas and Texas would not compete in the Big 12 championship. Well, Paul, Texas went on to compete in that Big 12 championship game, and they followed that up, but with a New Year's Six Bowl at the Sugar Bowl in which they upset Georgia and ended the year at number 9 on the AP poll, while Texas A&M finished at number 16. And I get it, we live in what have you done for me now lately kind of world. And Texas A&M, you look at last year, they were just on the outside of the college football playoff. And they still have their same coach. So some would argue, even though they are changing hands at the quarterback position, that they're better off going into next year. But this isn't about Texas A&M. The argument here is you say Texas isn't relevant. Seems to me you can only talk about A&M by mentioning Texas. Seems to me your alma mater, Tennessee, hasn't been relevant in over a decade unless you include major transfer from the program and headlines that shine the wrong kind of light on that school as a whole. Seems to me in order to get clicks, you did an entire segment once again on national television about Texas. Texas has one of the most loyal fan bases in the world. Again, follow the money, yet all that money is why you claim there are issues. The money was there when Texas was winning. The money has been there when Texas has lost. Yes, money talks, just not as loudly as you think it does. Stuck in the mud? Tell that to Texas 1-2 punch running backs Bijan Robinson and Roschon Johnson heading into this year. Both great candidates for all the top awards. Stuck in the mud? Sorry, I couldn't hear you over the construction of the new South End Zone. Stuck in the mud? Tell that to the 2021 summer enrollees who just stepped onto the 40 acres to begin their collegiate careers, excited as they could be. All of this coming from a man who has been stuck in the mud, pushing the same narrative for his entire career, SEC. I'd love to say something about how the eyes of Texas are upon you, Paul, but the truth is they never were and they won't be for long. We like to focus on what's relevant. Hook 'em.
Oh, yeah. In your face, Paul Feinbaum. Crowd goes wild. My goodness gracious.
Chris, I saw this video yesterday, and it took a while for me to calm down. My thoughts were everywhere. That's why I had to write them down, so just I could somewhat keep things in line. And there's plenty more that I could say. But his argument was Texas isn't relevant. We're not arguing here,
which is ridiculous.
We're not arguing rankings. We're not arguing what they look like in the signing area and the players that apparently are. Yes, lots of players are leaving the state of Texas to go play elsewhere. It's the state of Texas. People are born and bred to be football players, and yet Texas has still found a way to get top recruits to stay in Texas, to come to Austin, and to play for one of the best cities and teams in the world. So to say Texas isn't relevant, sir,
Well, and
you are out of your mind.
to say Texas isn't relevant, that's like saying the Lakers aren't relevant, the Dallas Cowboys aren't relevant, or the New York Yankees aren't relevant. Texas will always be relevant, period. And you said this too. No matter what the win-loss record on the field is, Texas, year in and year out, is one of the most intriguing storylines. Because they're a brand like the Cowboys or the Lakers or the Yankees. People want, even when they're seemingly down, people want to see what they're going to do and how they're going to perform. Paul Feinbaum is an SEC shill. He is an SEC hack. When I sometimes surf and accidentally stumble upon the Paul Feinbaum show on Sirius XM or wherever it's like, hey, here's a guy calling in from Auburn. Let's just talk about, wow, I really love the field. And it's god awful dreck is what it is. And as soon as I realize what I'm listening to, I have to punch out. So I think you nailed it. I think I totally agree with you on Paul Feinbaum. And it's got to be some weird inferiority complex. I guess he realizes even though Tennessee, one of their colors is orange, it can't compare with burnt orange. I don't know what his deal is, but he clearly has it out for Texas.
Yeah, I don't want to get into the man's personals, but there's something up there. That's for sure. That's it, folks. That's today's Salty Shakedown.
Woo!
Wow. You
Wow.
can find that, listen to it as many times as you want on both the Salty Shakedown podcast and the Chris Duel Show podcast, posted on the iHeartRadio app and wherever you get your podcasts.
And somebody, if you would like to, if you want to just tweet that over to Paul Feinbaum as well, I got a feeling he should probably hear that. I think it'd be probably
I'm sure
good for
he's
him.
heard a lot lately. And that was probably his point all along, because he knows Texas fans are passionate. And we're part of the reason Texas is relevant, right?
Yes.
Because we have our teams back, no matter the circumstances.
And he even took a little shot at Sark, saying pretty much anybody could have been the offensive coordinator. Here you are, Mr. SEC, and the gold standard for the SEC is Alabama. And Sark was the offensive coordinator for a very prolific Alabama offense. And you got to while you're taking your multiple shots at the University of Texas, you got to take a little passive aggressive shot at Steve Sarkisian. That was a little bit much.
This man is so far up Nick Saban and Jimbo Fisher's, you know what? I don't think he can see right.
Well, which I wonder, and you made the point, Jimbo Fisher made that statement about, we're going to kick Nick Saban's ass. Mm-hmm. I wonder how Paul Feinbaum can be, totally with allegiance to Nick Saban and Jimbo Fisher now. I wonder.
Well, his statement was that Jimbo Fisher is smarter than all of us.
Wow.
And he said, "What would Nick Saban say that we're going to beat him double?" Jesus, why do we give these people this platform?
Now, what we need, and save the audio on Paul Feinbaum. What we now need is the Texas Longhorns to have a prolific season, so that we can intercut some of the reality of the upcoming football season, which would hopefully involve things like a Big 12 championship and who knows, big time bowl game, if not an appearance in the college football playoff, and then come back and play what this dude had to say on the 2nd of June.
And some big SEC matchups coming in the years to come for Texas, because it's not going to happen overnight with a brand new coach. But that's not to say they aren't in a great position where they are now. Yeah.
And it is interesting, and we'll get into that obviously more and more as the summer wears on. You say it's not going to happen overnight with a brand new coach, yet expectations are really high, and one of the questions is, how high should expectations be for Steve Sarkisian? It's something that we will address as we roll forward as well. Coming up, Tanner Carlson, who, like Shannon, is a Dallas Mavericks fan. And like me, now, at least for this series, I am a Dallas Mavericks fan for this series. And Boban started last night, by the way. Yeah. I tweeted that out as soon as I found out. Boban got the start, baby. It could have been the Boban factor last night. Clippers lose to the Mavericks 105-100. The Clippers now on the brink of elimination. We'll talk NBA playoffs, Mavs. We'll talk NFL and more with Tanner Carlson coming right up. 8 o'clock hour is next on the Chris Duel Show. Woo! Woo! Johnny Campbell doesn't like Texas. Armando Salinas, good morning from Western Kentucky. Paul Lamb says, you want to shut up the SEC? Show up on Saturdays. Good
Can only
point,
play
sir.
who's on your schedule, Paul. But I'm glad I sparked a conversation.
Michelle Johnson, absolutely loyal Texas fans. My son attends Kansas State University, and when Texas came to Manhattan to play football, there among the sea of purple was Lane, my son, repping his orange Longhorn Sam Ellinger jersey. Yeah, and Michelle, and didn't Sam come up and autograph it? I think you told me that. Roy Flores, what is up? Roy Flores, who covers the Spurs for the Associated Press. Roy, we got to get you back on the show sometime soon, sir. Roy Flores, who was there on opening night at the Hemisphere Arena. I do believe it was October 10th, 1973. Spurs versus the San Diego Conquistadors. Conquistadors were coached by Wilt Chamberlain, assisted by Stan Albeck, who would later become a Spurs head coach and later live, retire, and ultimately, just this year, pass away in San Antonio, did Stan Albeck.
One more thing, Paul. Texas has a record of 95, 45, and 4 against SEC teams all time.
Ooh.
So they have shown up against the SEC. Again, you can only play who's on your schedule.
I wonder, Shannon, if that is percentage-wise the best stat of any non-SEC school against the SEC.
It's 67%.
That's a pretty formidable winning percentage. Greg Helt, welcome in. Oh, man, Roy, that is so cool. What a great guy Stan Albeck was. Sorry he's gone. Jesse Martinez says, can you Laker fans stop chanting MVP towards LeBron? Tonight's the night, man, for the Lakers. This could be the night they are ousted. And I must admit, I don't want to see LeBron go from the playoffs. Not yet. At least go 7 games. Give me a game 7. Tonight's game will be at Staples Center. You told me yesterday, and I was like right in the middle of like 9 other things. When you think I'm going to do OAI again, what day did you say that was?
Monday.
This coming Monday?
Yeah.
Okay. Monday and the 21st. Okay. Which would be the solstice. That would be summer solstice, the 21st.
So obviously I won't be here those 2 days, and the 23rd, I think the 18th, the other 2 days.
My God, that's a lot of days.
That's just for Tim and myself.
Wow.
Parker hasn't put his in yet.
Oh my God.
So yeah, the 23rd I got a doctor's appointment, so I follow up for my eye surgery.
Oh, okay.
And Tim's out on the well, he was supposed to be gone on the 18th, but Cherry is going to be on vacation that day, so he's going to come in and do the 5 o'clock hour and get Charlie ready.
So with Charity gone, who would be? Oh, okay. Yeah. Does Margot interact with to the same extent as Charity? Okay. Oh, cool. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I haven't heard her. You know, I've heard her do news. I haven't heard her on the show. Greg, I think you make a good point. Yeah, I mean, I think LeBron with an elimination game is going to give it everything he's got tonight, you would think. So it drives me. It's a 9:30 game. It won't start till 9:45. I wake up at 3. Every game I want to watch. Last night's game, the Mavericks game, was a late game. It's like there were 4 games last night. The one game I wanted to watch was the late game. Thank you, NBA.
You know what, though, Chris? LeBron can't play in the finals this year because his movie drops July 16th. So I think it's been his plan all along just to skip it.
That's funny. Although, if he were in the finals, he could pimp it even more. He could do the post-game interview and say, don't forget my movie drops tonight. Thank you, Eric. I am much more awake in the afternoons, I will tell you that. Afternoons was a much easier existence for me. But we appreciate your being here in the morning. Oh, I got to send an email. I keep forgetting that. Why do I keep forgetting to send this email? Where did that go? Tanner Carlson has stepped in the building.
Have no fear. I am here.
Yes.
Save the show.
Very nice. Show needs saving.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
You missed Shannon's takedown of Paul Feinbaum, which was
I'm sure she had plenty of
quite good.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Hear it, that Shannon rant.
It's maybe the most prolific rant yet.
Nice.
Here are the 4.
I mean, my only thing is, if they're irrelevant, then you're not having a full topic of discussion on not taking up a whole.
Yeah, well, and one of my points is calling Texas irrelevant is like calling the Lakers, the Cowboys, or the New York Yankees irrelevant. They're never irrelevant.
Even when they're bad,
Ever. Yeah.
even when they're bad, they're still pretty relevant.
Yes.
They have more primetime games than Oklahoma has.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, TV stations know, but Feinbaum is a SEC fanboy, so I mean, nothing you can really do about it.
Yeah. When I've occasionally been surfing Sirius XM, and sometimes there's the Paul Feinbaum show, and all these like talking to these good old boys from Tuscaloosa. Hey, this is Jimmy in Tuscaloosa. I really think I don't know. I think our backup linebackers. There's this ball coming out of Mississippi that I really think Nick needs to take. It's like, God, please kill me.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's just it gets to a point where it's just for clicks, and it's like when you have a take like that, you're basically doing the same thing whenever you talk about the Cowboys.
Yeah,
and say something utterly ridiculous that they're either going to get last place in the division or they're going to win the Super Bowl or whatever. You're just going for clicks at that point. Whenever you're on the national stage of
anything else on your radar? Anything else? We'll start Mavericks and maybe move into Cowboys but anything else?
Nothing on the top of my mind.
We'll figure it out. There he is on video.
Now, Chris Duel.
8 o'clock hour on a throwback Thursday, on a day after just huge stories in the world of sports and mainly in the world of basketball, college and pro. As yesterday we learned that Brad Stevens will step aside as head coach of the Boston Celtics, move into the front office, take Danny Ainge's job as general manager of the Celtics, as at age 62, Danny Ainge, citing, among other things, health concerns, is stepping away from the Celtics. Of course, the big bombshell yesterday, Mike Krzyzewski, Coach K of Duke, saying he will retire at the end of the upcoming NCAA season. And then we had 4 NBA games last night, the latest of which was the Dallas Mavericks beating the LA Clippers 105-100. We'll dive into that right now, among a whole bunch of other things. It's the Chris Duel Show, along with Shannon Salty Sweeney, Dave Ayler, your soundscape stylist. And we now have, I think for the first time ever, well, not the first time, because it's been this whole we have 3 Mavericks fans. We have lifelong Mavericks fan Shannon Sweeney, lifelong Mavericks fan Tanner Carlson, and for this series, Mavericks fan Chris Du. I'm a Mavericks fan for this series. And last night, Tanner, I became even a bigger Mavericks fan when I saw Boban Marjanovic in the starting lineup.
The savior.
What a bold move that was.
It was a ballsy decision for Coach Rick Carlisle to insert Boban, because the Clippers have gone small ball, and for you to respond to small ball with the tallest lineup since the 2003 Dallas Mavericks did it in the playoffs, when they had 3 7-footers starting in the starting lineup. Dirk was the small forward, quote unquote, back on that 2003 playoff team. But going to this series, it's a very typically you fight small ball with small ball, and then not only do you play with 2 7-footers in the starting lineup against small ball, you go 2-3 zone in an NBA game, in which the NBA game is revolving around the 3-point line. Also a very, very gutsy decision. You're basically relying on guys to miss open threes, which did happen for the Mavericks. I don't know if you go back to that strategy. I don't know if it works out in your favor the second time.
Luka Doncic coming off of an injury. He was, in a lot of people's minds, questionable for the game last night, and he goes absolutely off. 42 points, 8 rebounds, 14 assists, 6 3-point shots. I mean, this guy, when healthy, it almost seems like this playoff series. I know we knew who he was a year ago, and these two teams faced each other in the playoffs a year ago, but this seems more like Luka's coming out party. And if they wind up winning this series, it's going to be an emphatic, I'm Luka, I'm here, I'm a force to be reckoned with now in the NBA playoffs.
I 100% agree with everything in terms of what you said about Luka. In terms of the entire NBA, look at the guys who are stepping up. Devin Booker, Donovan Mitchell for the Utah Jazz, Trae Young, for the Atlanta Hawks. These are the guys we're talking about. We're not talking so much about Kawhi or Paul George and all these other names that we are typically used to hearing in the playoffs. This is a youth movement in the NBA, and I'm loving it. I really enjoy a fresh face of the NBA. And a buddy of mine, we were talking last night, where do you currently rank Luka right now, as this moment right now with all the health and everybody playing in the NBA currently? I said right now it is Durant, Luka, Lillard, top
Whoa.
3 players in the NBA currently at this moment in time.
Durant, Luka, Lillard. Shannon, is Mr. Tanner Carlson a little delusional ranking Luka the number 2 player right now in the NBA?
I don't think so.
Wow.
It's certainly not LeBron. It's certainly not Kawhi.
Airball Kawhi Leonard.
It's certainly not the guys you would place there prior to the playoffs even starting, even the season starting.
I mean, Street Clothes Davis is sitting, he's sitting on the bench. I'm not.
His groin, it hurts.
It hurts. It's in a lot of pain. But I just am saying right at this moment in the playoffs, from last night's game, from Lillard's performance, I just think that where would this Mavericks team be without Luka? I'm saying number 1, fighting for the number 1 pick in the draft. I'm saying this team is bad. This team is not a good team. They've got some pieces. They've got some things that work around Luka decently well. You've got some cogs in the machine that make it work a little bit better. But this team without Luka is not good. I think the 2 or 3 minutes they start the second quarter without Luka is some of the worst basketball I've seen in a long time. And so if he's not on the court, the Mavs are a complete loss, especially on the offensive side of the ball. So I have to take that into consideration too, is not just the impact on the court, but off the court as well.
Now, Shannon and I talked about this, Tanner. In the next 2 consecutive nights, starting tonight, both LA teams can be eliminated. Lakers can be eliminated tonight. Clippers can be eliminated tomorrow night. We had New York, the number 1 market, eliminated last night. You cited Donovan Mitchell, and yes, he is very good, and you're a fan, and you and Shannon will continue to be engaged, certainly as long as the Mavericks are alive. But if the Lakers are gone, if the Clippers are gone, Celtics are gone. This NBA, that the ratings were not good in the Orlando bubble. This NBA that seems to have driven some fans away with its embracing of social issues and the Black Lives Matter movement, which I applaud the NBA for embracing. But there's a segment of our population that has an aversion to social messages coming from athletes. They need ratings to increase. What do you think happens if the Utah Jazz go to the NBA Finals and teams like the Lakers and the Clippers are gone by tomorrow night?
I don't necessarily believe in the whole you need these big markets to drive the NBA ratings. I don't think you need big markets to drive any ratings of any sport. I don't think you need. I mean, yes, of course, if the Dallas Cowboys make the Super Bowl, the ratings are going to be astronomical. I understand that, but the ratings are already fine when you have a Tampa Bay Buccaneers team and a Kansas City Chiefs. I don't think anybody was complaining about small market teams in the NFL. I don't see. I don't see. Where were the Lakers before LeBron? They weren't in the playoffs. The Lakers had a 5-year skid of not even going into the playoffs. The Knicks haven't been relevant in 20 years, and the NBA has done just fine. You get these teams like the Golden State Warriors, who were never considered a major market. You get the right players at the right spots. People are going to watch regardless. And I think it's a youth movement more so than a big market, small market difference in terms of the rating. There is a market of unfamiliar names doing big things, like a Devin Booker who has never been to the playoffs before, like a Trae Young who has never been to the playoffs before, like a Donovan Mitchell who has been to the playoffs but has never made a whole lot of noise in the playoffs, a Luka Doncic. There are names that aren't as familiar as a LeBron James or a Kobe Bryant or whoever you want to cite going into this year's playoffs. So yeah, it is different. It is odd. It is a little bit strange to see these teams that are doing well with unfamiliar names other than the Brooklyn Nets, obviously, which is why I think everybody has them. It is their championship to lose. Let's be honest. So, but that's what I think more of the difference is. I don't necessarily believe in the whole,
you have to have the Lakers to have successful ratings. You just said it last year. The ratings tanked and were terrible. The Lakers were in the finals last year.
That's a good point.
LeBron and AD were in the finals, and people still didn't watch. So I don't think it's necessarily the markets. I think it's the product on the court. It comes down to, is your popularity based on social media encounters with players and fans, or is your popularity based on the product on the court? And right now it's based on social media and interactions and all the other excess amount of things that go around off the court, like the major storyline this offseason or in the playoffs are fans interacting with players, spitting on them and throwing stuff at them. That can't be your main storyline. Your main storyline, if you want ratings to improve, has to be the actual play on the court.
So, Shannon, how much trouble is the NBA in? As Tanner documents, the big story of the playoffs is fan misbehavior that almost is overshadowing what's happening on the basketball court.
I think it goes to what we said before. You know, you have to separate the NFL from the NBA because, like we talked about earlier, no matter who's in the Super Bowl, you're watching the Super Bowl, but the same can't be said for the NBA Finals. And it's not so much about the teams within the market; it's about the size of the market itself, as far as visibility and eyes. And you get rid of LA, you're getting rid of a lot of the West Coast too, right? And the NBA has struggled with years, and you can argue last year's bad ratings because it was the bubble, because of the time of year, just everyone felt like it was kind of a wash anyway. But the NBA certainly has a problem in that people aren't interested in these smaller markets when they aren't already there. Whether it's they need bigger names or they need bigger names to end up staying there, right? I mean, it was a huge deal that the Greek Freak signed with Milwaukee to stay in Milwaukee because no one is necessarily gearing up for a big Milwaukee finals appearance. But I think in the long run, if you have interesting players and big market type players in markets across the country that aren't your LAs and New Yorks and Chicagos, that's better for the NBA and their relevancy and hopefully better play on the court, right? Because right now, it's like with Brooklyn and everyone sees their ride to the finals being an easy one. That's kind of the narrative whenever they step on the court, no matter who they play. Well, it's these three guys versus them. So that's a watch. Why even tune in?
I think that there's also another discussion to be had too, is if Damian Lillard was playing for the Lakers or the Clippers, how many free agents do you think would go play with him in LA? I think it would be the number one marketable team for a player destination to go play with. I think players want to go play with Damian Lillard. I don't know why they don't. The only thing I can think of is that he's in Portland.
Yes.
But why does that matter? You're rich enough, you can have a house in LA and still play in Portland. You can still live somewhere else and play in Portland or play in Dallas or play in San Antonio, play in Oklahoma City. I don't get why the color of your jersey matters. I've never understood that.
I think if you've got that level of money, though, if you're a multi-millionaire 25-year-old or 27-year-old, whatever you are, and you have the choice of living in Portland or San Antonio when you can go to South Beach or you can go to LA or San Francisco or New York, I just think I think it makes it. 82 game schedule, 41 of those games are home games. I think if you can live in South Beach, if you like clubbing, they probably have a better night scene than San Antonio.
You're probably right about that, but I mean, whenever you're in the NBA, how often are you on road trips and traveling, and you're going to those destinations anyway?
Yeah,
I mean, it's just a quick road trip, and besides, you're playing back-to-backs, you're playing double headers, you're just so busy throughout the regular season. You've got the whole off season to enjoy those amenities. I don't know. I've never been a big fan of, or I've never understood the calling to go play for a New York Knicks organization that's complete dog crap whenever you're a superstar player.
They can change it.
No, they can't. That's the thing is that the franchise is terrible.
To make the change.
I guess that's what they want, but I don't see why you would want to go play for a bad head coach and a bad organization and a team that can't win and hasn't won in forever, whenever you can play for a team that has a smaller market, maybe not as good of a nightlife, even though you play during the nighttime and your game's over at 12. So you got a couple hours to go hit the club, I guess, afterwards, when you're dog tired and exhausted. But I've never understood that. Whenever you've got a perfectly good organization and say the San Antonio Spurs that know how to run their organization, they have a legendary Hall of Fame coach, and yet not one free agent wants to come and play there. I've never understood it. Same with Dallas. I think Dirk Nowitzki played with one other all-star teammate his entire career in Dallas. I think he had one other all-star, and that was Steve Nash.
Wow.
It blows my mind as to why wouldn't you want to go play there? It's not a bad organization. They're winning. They're in the playoffs every single year. They've got marketability. And how is Dallas considered a small market in the NBA?
I don't think it should be.
I don't think it should be either, but it is.
And back to Dallas for a moment here. A couple of days ago, you were in studio, Tanner, both you and Shannon. I brought up the Mavericks prospects to win this series, and the two of you were kind of pessimistic. Now the Mavericks are up 3-2. They have a chance on their home floor tomorrow night to close out this series. Are you beginning to believe in the Dallas Mavericks, or are you still concerned? I mean, the home team never wins in this series. So how do you feel about this series now?
I feel good about Luka. That's really that's all I can feel good about. I don't feel good about Tim Hardaway's consistency or his defense. I can't stand Kristaps Porzingis. In fact, I don't think he should start. I think he should average maybe 10 minutes as a rotation guy. Kristaps Porzingis should be getting as many minutes as Willie Cauley-Stein is getting. That's how awful and how lack of just, he stands there. You just watch? Everybody do me a favor. If you hate the Mavericks, that you'll love doing this. Instead of watching Luka every play, watch Kristaps Porzingis play. Just sit there and watch what he does. He's got a 6'3" Rajon Rondo defending him on the 3-point line, and he just stands there, 3 feet behind the 3-point line.
Maybe that's what the play calls for. Maybe he's
to get him as non-involved in the play as possible. And then on defense, he does the same thing. Just stands on the 3-point line on defense. You're 7'3". You've got 3 rebounds all series long. He's got no purpose on this Dallas Mavericks team. But I feel good about Luka. I don't think the Clippers have an answer for him, so I feel good about the Mavs.
We have you in studio for a couple more minutes. When we bring you in, we often talk football. It is June 3rd. We move closer to the month of July. Once we get to the month of July, teams will begin to open up their training camps. Obviously, we talk Dallas Cowboys with you. Anything on your Cowboys radar as we close out this first week that we move into June?
I'm looking forward to seeing some of these injured guys and how they treat them throughout training camp. I don't think you're going to see Dak getting as many reps throughout training camp. I think it's going to be a good offseason for a backup quarterback to try to emerge and be that clear-cut number 2 guy. And then you got guys like we kind of forget about Blake Jarwin.
Yes.
He came back. We always talk about how the 2 tackles and the offensive line was banged up and we didn't have Dak and the defense was atrocious last year. Well, Blake Jarwin was a pretty significant injury in the first half of week 1.
Yeah.
So towards ACL. I'm looking forward to seeing how they kind of integrate him along with Dalton Schultz and seeing if we can have a little bit of a dual tight end threat instead of just relying on the wide receivers, which I know we have a great wide receiver core in Dallas, but I think the offense is going to be fine. Obviously, the big storyline is defense and how you're going to move around the linebackers. And speaking about moving around linebackers, what do you think that Cowboys should entertain trade offers for Vander, Ashe, or Jalen Smith?
I have heard that this week. And I have heard that teams are inquiring. And I mean, both of them are questionable. Vander Ashe with injury issues, Jalen Smith not playing to the level we had hoped. So I would certainly entertain trade offers.
I think you have to entertain the right trade offer. I don't think you need to find yourself getting, taken advantage of on a Vander Ashe trade. I don't think you can take advantage. I think Dallas would be the one taking advantage of any team that trades for Jalen Smith. I think you get rid of his contract, you get rid of that player in general, then I think you're in good shape in terms of just the rotation of guys. You got solid depth now at linebacker, which is always a position that is typically thin because it's such a contact-heavy position. You see a lot of injuries there. So I don't think you can have too many good options at linebacker. I think you can have plenty of linebackers. So I'm not upset if they don't move any one of them. I would like to see Vander Ashe stay. I'd like to see him on a fully healthy season and see if he can. If he can't be healthy, then you just don't sign him. You know, he's on the last year of his contract anyway. They're not picking up his fifth option. So yeah, I think you ride it out with Vander Esch. If you can move Jalen Smith, you move him.
How ironic that Leighton Vander Esch is now reminding us of Sean Lee as far as similar build, similar skill set at linebacker, a big upside. And both of them, had Sean Lee not been injured, I think Sean Lee might have been one of the most remarkable Dallas Cowboy linebackers ever. And I think Vander Esch had that kind of upside as well. But these guys just seem to be, you know, they've got the injury bug, and it seems to be dogging them so much, and it ended the career of Sean Lee.
I thought Sean Lee would still be the starting linebacker. I mean, think about that. Like, he would still be a solid linebacker had he not dealt with all the injuries. I always put Sean Lee in the same category when he was healthy as a Luke Kuechly and a Bobby Wagner and a Patrick Willis back whenever those guys were in their heydays. You know, that's the caliber player he was. He was just never on the field, and I always say, the number one ability you can have as any player on any sport is availability. And if you're not available to help your team, then you're not doing anybody any good.
Tanner Carlson, a great follow on Twitter at Tanner Carlson 20. And thank you for not attacking Tim Tebow this week on Twitter. I know you went after LeBron at one point. But not Tim Tebow.
Just the quit LeBron James and then Anthony Street Clothes Davis. I'll pick on them for this week.
And I hope you and Shannon are celebrating tomorrow night as the Mavericks hopefully close out Kawhi Leonard.
We need all the Spurs fans' support as we can possibly get.
You got me. I am on board.
All right.
Go Boban. Go Luka. Go Mavericks.
If nothing else, just root for Boban.
Oh, yeah.
If nothing else.
That's it. I want Boban to be happy. Great stuff, Tanner.
Yeah.
Thanks for
Have a
coming
good
in.
one, guys.
Tanner Carlson with his very own sound effect. More coming up. We will talk. I got to talk a little Houston Astros. Astros are on a roll. They've got a day game today. First pitch 1:10 this afternoon at Minute Maid Park against the Boston Red Sox. Astros have won 4 in a row. We will scour the internets, plural, in honor of former President George W. Bush. We'll scour the internets, see what's popping in the world of sports. And, of course, we're sure that once we go off the air at 9, there'll be another huge story like Coach K or Brad Stevens or Danny Ainge. Lots coming up. She's Shannon Salty Sweeney. Dave Ayler making the show go. We're with you till 9 on the Chris Duel Show. Eric points. Yeah, I saw a couple of people cite Jason Kidd. Eric. Roy Flores says these players are kids, literally extremely young kids who are lured by the limelight. They prefer big markets because of visibility. Outside of Utah and postseason, how many people are following Donovan Mitchell? Outside of Atlanta and postseason, how many people are tracking Trae Young? Outside of Denver and postseason, who is excited about Nikola Jokic? Roy, you make a very powerful case there. Fred Robert Casares Jr. Cowboys should keep both Jalen and Leighton Vander Esch till the trading deadline and try to get a second or third round pick. I agree. Sean Lee was a great player when healthy. Yeah, Carl, Astros on a roll here with 4 in a row. Thank you for the HEB reference, Eric. I'll be right back. Yeah, Roy, a lot of people forget about that trade. Trae Young for Luka. John Williams, I got what you sent me about the state fair. Thank you. Let's see here. There you go, Eric. Orange Bud Light. Eric, we might have to do something. I haven't thought about that because of obviously COVID, but now that things are getting better, that's probably something we should explore. Bud Light Orange kills COVID. There you go. Eric says, I got the needle and I'm ready to mingle. Funny. Here we come. Welcome back. It is the Chris Duel Show, along with Shannon Salty Sweeney, who about an hour ago did her salty shakedown, takedown of Paul Feinbaum, the SEC hack partisan Paul Feinbaum. Salty shakedown, takedown. That might be the new, when you take somebody down. It
I
might
like
be a salty shakedown takedown.
I like
I'm
it.
just saying. It was excellent, by the way.
Thank you.
So well done. And if you missed it, it is already out there. You can find it. It's been tweeted out, but you can always find the show podcast. And then there's a direct salty shakedown replay podcast as well. You can find via either the websites AM 1300 The Zone or Ticket 760 or the Twitter pages. Lots of ways you can find them. Breaking news out of Tokyo this morning, and it's not good news for the Tokyo Olympics. About 10,000 volunteers have quit the Tokyo Olympics. Apparently, there were a total of 80,000 unpaid volunteers, but now we are 50 days away from the start of the Tokyo Olympics. They are set to start on July 23rd, and 10,000 of those 80,000 volunteers have dropped out of the Tokyo Olympics, a number of them citing concerns over the coronavirus. Shannon, we've had citizens protesting in Tokyo. We've had doctors coming together, signing open letters to the International Olympic Committee and local government in Tokyo saying the Olympics should not happen. I heard Bob Costas last night on CNN saying the Olympics in Tokyo should not happen. Costas prefers a postponement. Of course, it was already postponed once from 2020, and the IOC has said it won't be postponed again. But with 50 days to go now before the Tokyo Olympics, it's going to be interesting. It looks like they're going to happen, but the more and more people say, nope, I'm not going to participate, it makes you wonder if things could still go south here.
This is huge, but I have 2 points in this. One, the landscape of COVID changes, not like the Austin weather because it's been raining nonstop, but it changes day to day. So as bad as things may seem now, we can't know what they're going to look like in 50 days, for better or for worse.
Yeah.
2, we already know that they're not allowing international fans to attend the events. And we don't yet know how many local fans are going to be able to attend events, what social distancing will look like, if there will be concessions based on the number of people that are there. So that in itself takes away the need for, I would say, even a couple thousand of those volunteers. Now, what those volunteers' specific roles were going to be, I don't know. Are they roles that maybe they could have divvied up and not really needed 10,000 people to do? Maybe they only needed half that because, you have less people. You don't need as much security. You don't need as much convenience workers. You don't need as much janitorial staff. You don't need all the people checking the gates for ticketing. I mean, you go down that list, and I think those numbers start to add up really quickly when you have less people in the stands in attendance. So I am not super concerned by this. I think it's a great headline. And it is something worth noting as we get closer and closer. I can't believe we're only 50 days away. I'm so excited.
That's crazy. Yeah.
But that is huge. But I'm going to stay positive. And I'm not going to be concerned.
Yeah. I was watching on CNN last night. It was Chris Cuomo interviewing Bob Costas. And I'm a big Bob Costas fan. I think Costas, he goes all the way back to the ABA when he came out of Syracuse. He got a gig as the play-by-play guy of the Spirits of St. Louis of the ABA, which was a team that used to play the San Antonio Spurs back in the day. And obviously, Bob Costas has done many, many Olympics over the years for NBC and other outlets. But Costas points out, and this I think also, is part of what you just said as far as international fans are not coming. But Costas's point is so many countries around the world, right now in the United States, things are looking much better, where our COVID infections and cases are lower than they were a year ago and approaching where they were, like in March or April of a year ago. So things are looking very, very good in the United States. A lot of people getting vaccinated, as have you, as have Dave, and as have I. We've all been good humans and got vaccinated. But Costas's point, all of these teams coming from all of these different countries, some countries like India specifically, my God, it's like full blown out of control. It's a firestorm of COVID infections in India. So the concern is you're going to have these international athletes flying in from all over the world and converging on Tokyo. And that's the big concern there. We're bringing in all of these people from all of these countries into an Olympic village. Will it be a petri dish of infection? And I guess we're about to find out. When the Texas Rangers, and again, this is in the United States where things have been better, but on opening day of Major League Baseball, I heard a lot of people say, that's it. The Texas Rangers are allowing full capacity at that new ballpark in Arlington. That's going to be a super spreader event. Just wait until 2 weeks after, and you'll see the evidence. As it turned out, it was not. I am hoping that the International Olympic Committee and the on-the-ground Tokyo Olympic officials, obviously I would imagine each one of these athletes has to be tested and ideally vaccinated before they come to Tokyo and play these games. So hopefully it all comes together and all works out and there's not a major outbreak and we're able to have 1 year after we were supposed to have them, the Tokyo Olympics.
As we're talking about this, I'm looking through the Twitterverse and seeing what is happening with the Olympics, and they're tweeting out they unveiled the official podium for the games. It's all made of recyclable material. There are countries that are revealing their uniforms, so it still seems everything's going ahead, no matter what the outside, whatever. Oh yeah, 10,000 people, yeah, whatever. Put that back in the closet over there. We're look at the podiums. Look at the shiny podiums made of all donated recyclable materials. This is what we're looking at. This is what.
Yeah, don't look over here. Look over here.
Exactly. So yeah, something certainly to keep an eye on. And we mentioned earlier, you mentioned the possibility of it being a petri dish, and that it's just something you're not going to know until after it happens. The softball team for Australia, already in Japan.
That's crazy.
Staying at a different location, can't even get into the Olympic Village until July 17th. And they have an entire floor to themselves at the hotel and are only leaving that floor to train. I don't know if there are plans for other teams and countries to do this with any of their athletes. I wouldn't be surprised, however, if it does come to that, especially for countries like Australia or like the United States, who could afford to put up their athletes for that extra amount of time prior to entering the Olympic Village.
Going to be interesting, and we'll keep an eye on it. We didn't talk a lot of Astros baseball today, and sooner or later we might have to if they keep winning. They won again last night. It was a tight one. They beat the Boston Red Sox 2-1 last night. Framber Valdez on the mound for the Astros pitched 7 strong innings. In 7 innings, he gave up 5 hits, 1 earned run. He had 10 strikeouts. Framber Valdez has an ERA this season of 1.64. So we've talked about this a lot. The hitting is great. The Astros have scored more runs than any other team in Major League Baseball. If they can get some pitching, and each of the last 2 nights they've gotten some pitching going, that's going to pay dividends for the Astros. They play the Red Sox again today. It is a day game. That is a 1:10 first pitch. Jake Odorizzi is on the mound for Houston. Jake, not so good thus far this season, 0-2 with a 6.75 ERA. Martin Perez will be on the mound for the Red Sox, 3-2 with an ERA of 3.55. So, and then the bad news last night, just like the night before, the Astros won, but Oakland did not lose. Oakland last night beat the Seattle Mariners 6-0. So because Oakland won, even though the Astros won, the Astros still remain 1/2 game behind the Oakland A's in the AL West. So an opportunity each of the last 2 nights to leapfrog into first place in the AL West. We'll try again today and see what happens today for the Houston Astros.
I'm not worried.
Nah.
It's harder to stay up top than get there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And
Waiting
they're
for the right moment.
They're playing well. There's no major injuries right now. They're hitting well. They're scoring well. They're beginning to pitch. So yeah, I'm okay with the Astros right now. So again, and we touched upon it, and we'll give you the poll results in a moment. But the big story of the last 24 hours, Mike Krzyzewski, Coach K at Duke, announcing he will retire at the end of the season. John Shayer, an assistant, will take over as head coach after this season when Coach K leaves. And again, I've said this about Coach Pop, Shannon, no matter how long a guy's been around, and Coach K is 74 years old now. He's been at Duke over 40 years. I think his entire career, dating back to coaching at West Point, is 46 years as a college basketball coach. And as you mentioned earlier, don't forget he coached the professionals and Team USA as well, quite successfully. When he leaves, even though he's been around forever, you go, oh my God, I can't believe it's over. You know, it's like, as you said, your entire life since before you were born, Coach K has been the coach at Duke. You're a sports fan. You're a basketball fan. You've never known sports without Coach K at Duke. And it's pretty amazing that's about to come to an end at the end of next season.
Has this ever happened before with a coach? Because we see it with players, right? I mean, we knew when it was Kobe's last year. We will most certainly know when it's LeBron's last year because he will want the parade. We knew when it was Dwayne Wade's time to hang it up, right? And they kind of go on this tour during their final season. Or is that what we're getting here?
I think we are.
After his years of service?
Yes. And you're not going to get it for Coach Pop. I mean, we know that. Pop doesn't want a farewell tour.
Out as quietly as he can. Media won't let it go quietly, but he certainly will. But for Coach K, and I think also too, like, for recruiting purposes, I think he's trying to do right by the program, because he is, like, I know they have a great atmosphere for a place to play, and obviously they're great, but they're great because of him, and that atmosphere is great because of him. So he doesn't want to. You don't want the narrative of, like, you tricked me, he's leaving, whatever. Like, no, he's saying this is the deal. But it's also great in that he's got the next head coach in waiting, already signed, already this is who it's going to be. He played there, he's been coaching there, and they're going to go through this together. So I'm really interested in how that turnover works after next year, if that, if this starts to become a thing.
Yeah.
For coaches who have similar careers as Coach K. Not that many will or have.
Well, and we brought it up earlier in the show. John Shayer is the guy's name, the assistant who is now the coach in waiting at Duke. Can you continue to be a top 5, top 10 program with John Shayer as your coach when you had a legendary coach in Coach K for all of those years? And Shannon, that was our poll question today. Where does Coach K rank in the pantheon of all-time men's college basketball head coaches? Is he viewed as the best ever? That was the poll question.
Yes, and one of our 3 options today, Coach K, Dean Smith, and John Wooden. Also, you could tell us, but 57% voting for John Wooden, 15% for Dean Smith, and 26% for Coach K.
Yep. John Wooden got my vote. John Wooden got Shannon's vote. And Roy Flores pointing out to me, going into last night, the Astros were the highest scoring team in Major League Baseball, but the Dodgers beat the Cardinals 14-3 yesterday, while Houston scored 2 runs, beating Boston 2-1. So today, technically, we have a new highest scoring team in Major League Baseball. That's the Dodgers, 298 runs, and the Astros are 291.
I don't know.
So, yeah. The Astros the Dodgers scored 11 runs in the first inning, including a Cody Bellinger grand slam. Way to go, Dave Naylor, your St. Louis Cardinals.
I told you the pitching was going to be bad this year.
My God.
In the season.
I hope
you pitching is going to be bad.
I hope you weren't watching that game.
No.
End of the first inning, Dodgers 11, Cardinals nothing. End of the first inning. My God. Sorry.
Did we just run rule it at that point?
Yes.
Yeah, we should have.
Can we all go home? Dodgers win. We're done.
Close that one out.
All right. Our thanks to Tanner Carlson. Shannon, spectacular today. The Salty Shakedown was a tour de force. If you missed the Salty Shakedown or if you want to relive it, go find the podcast. And it was spectacular takedown of Paul Feinbaum for attacking the Texas Longhorns. Dave Naylor, great job, sir.
Bring on a Friday.
Let's do it tomorrow. Let's do this in 21 hours. Why the hell not? Have yourself a great Throwback Thursday. We will see you mañana. Adios, amigos.